And then when we're finished with surgery, we reboot the system and they wake back up and they're able to go away. So I think this is a great, great opportunity for the future. Oops, sorry, you're not allowed to see that one. But the things that I have shown you really need to be rigorously proven and validated. And we have a method, a scientific method. Okay? And a friend of mine was into designing children's things like this slide. And so we need to do the same kind of process. But these are high risk. And it was said earlier, you know, expect failure. And so we never know what the unintended consequences might be. But remember what Michelangelo said. The only thing more dangerous than trying too hard and failing is not trying hard enough and being successful. You won't change the future that way. I know I'm over time. I'm going to take 2 minutes because this is the most important part. Technologies are racing fast, and we, both in society and healthcare, are not looking at the moral and ethical implications. And these are now profound. These technologies are not good or evil. It's how we use them that's important. And it's our responsibilities for the developers of them or the physicians who use them to be able to look at them. So what have we learned? Well, we failed the first time. The first time was human cloning, and 190 or 193 countries said, we will not do research in that area. We have China, Korea, and Switzerland. Why China needs to keep on doing cloning, I don't know. They have enough people. But nevertheless, they're continuing in this direction. So not doing the research is not the answer. So what are we faced with? And what kind of problems are you going to have to deal with above and beyond the simple engineering ones? Well, how about genetically engineering? We've had the first genetically engineered child in 2006 by modifying in vitro fertilization. That was so successful that we now have something called savior babies or savior siblings. If a family has a child with a known genetic defect that can be cured, and there are many of them and we're discovering more every day, that family is going to be asked to have another child so that their stem cells can be harvested and you can cure the disabled child to live a normal life. What happens if the family does not want another child? Should we make that family so that poor child can have a normal life? What's the government's responsibility? A $20,000 or $40,000 operation, if you will, to harvest the stem cells and cure this one person? Or maybe $100,000 or $200,000 a year to sustain them in a disabled position for the rest of their life? And are you going to pay for it out of your taxes? Not an easy question. Are we going to start growing people? We're growing all the way up to hamburgers, and we're growing up to organs. The next generation may well be embryo on a chip or a test tube baby. This is the direction that we really want to go. This is going to be much harder than just growing organs, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. In 50 years, it may become something that is much more realistic. I can remember 20 years ago, in vitro fertilization was considered A, an act against God, and B, undoable. And now we have in vitro fertilization that's absolutely common. Longevity. There are 3 different strains of rice that have been genetically modified in one way or another, apoptosis, anti-telomerase, or interfering with the glutamic index, such that these mice live the equivalent of 2 to 2.5 times a normal lifespan. Humans' maximum lifespan is 120 years. No human has ever lived more than 120 years. What happens if we give your granddaughter this genetic modification? Now she's going to live 250 years. She can retire at age 55 on Social Security for 150 years. What happens if we have a population that doesn't die for 200 years? We have enough trouble feeding people today. Can you imagine if they're living hundreds of years instead of just decades? And who's going to decide who gets to live that long? Profound questions. Kevin Warwick started embedding things into himself, the first cyborg, if you will. And we now have robots that are beginning to not only look very realistic, but their computer programs have in there what we call emotional or affective computer programs that interpret the question to them and actually they not only answer the question with the proper inflection of their voices, but also with the proper expressions on their face. And so here you see from Dave Hansen from the University of Texas at Austin, the pirate answering questions and giving various expressions and so on and so forth. So that cyborg that I showed you at the very beginning isn't too far away from what David is actually able to show us today. And this actually is 3 or 4 years old. Very interesting questions. So I can replace any part of your body. If I do, are you still human? What is it that makes you human? Is it that flesh and blood that you were born with, or is there something more? I don't know. So I will finish with probably the most controversial question that was raised by Francis Fukuyama, the the chairman of the President's Commission on Biomedical Ethics about 6 years ago. And it goes something like this. For the first time in history, there walks upon this planet a species so powerful it can control its own evolution to its own time and its own choosing. That species is Homo sapiens. We are not going to wait 500,000 or 1 million years for a new species to naturally evolve. Humans don't do that. So my question to you, and particularly to the students in the audience, what will you choose to be the next species after humans? Because right now, that decision is yours. Thank you very much.